Okay, good.
Same smoke.
So, the question of suffering, this has always been a question that people ask, and sadly, many Christians don't get the kind of answers that they need from the Bible that will help them to explain this to others. The answer, once I tell you, is very, very simple, and it will stay with you, and I hope it's meaningful throughout your lifetime, and in also answering the questions of others that are going through difficulties. Simply stated, suffering is part of the curse, and God has allowed the curse and therefore allowed suffering and death so that we will dislike suffering and the curse and therefore look for a remedy. So as the law is a schoolmaster and a tutor that brings us to Christ, and again I reemphasize, no one could be made righteous by keeping the law, and no one is able to keep the law. The only one that kept the law perfectly is Jesus. And therefore, the law condemned men to sin and brought us to that point where we recognize the being poor in spirit. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom. And so suffering and death is the result of the curse. The curse is the result of sin. But one might suggest, well, how does that work with all of the present suffering, and how does God work through it? And that is by virtue of the fact that we dislike it. And when we are blaming God for suffering, and when we're blaming God for sin, and we're blaming God for death, which is the common response that people exercise, we're missing the point. The problem is us. We caused the death. We caused the sin. We caused the suffering. Now, that is corporate, not individual. There are some people that will go through life and it seems that they have no suffering. Others that have brief suffering. Let's say that a person is in an accident and they die quickly. Or another is going through a long period of time in which there is suffering that is agonizing and painful. And the Lord will allow the various types of suffering to occur for His own purposes. And this is, of course, the standard fallback answer. God is sovereign, He does what He pleases. And that is true. But it is very, very likely that God does allow suffering, even in particular among the righteous, because the marker that makes us different than those who do not know the Lord is the way we suffer. When we are the people of God and we are able to suffer with joy or with an inner peace, not with happiness. Happiness is an external and temporal feeling, but joy that comes from within, we shine all that much more brightly. Even Paul the Apostle mentioned this when he said that others are emboldened by my chains. So Paul's imprisonment, Paul's beatings, Paul's sufferings caused the others to see the testimony of the way he suffered, and it emboldened them in their faith. And so God does allow many times the righteous to suffer that we might shine. And this, of course, is a lesson for all of us, that we are careful that when we are suffering, that we are not complaining. And of course, we see the problem of complaining all through the wilderness journeys with Israel and all otherwise in the churches. Do all things without murmuring and disputing. In everything give thanks, for this is the will of God in Christ Jesus concerning you. Not for everything give thanks, but in everything give thanks. And so suffering is the result of the curse, and it is allowed to make us uncomfortable so that we will want better. We will want deliverance. We do not want to endure this. We want something that will bring us relief, and the only relief is in the eternal with the Lord.